The search for Dedan Kimathi ended at Nyeri police station after the Mau Mau leader had been captured.
God sent a woman.
Tell, O Pharaoh, let my people go.
I want to show you something very, very important. Very important. This right here. And to all the other men who served and died for their king and country, died for their king, man, for their colonizer. This is terrible. We should get rid of this, man. We should change this. And if you're talking of talent, look at these guys, man. Look at that. Man, I love that. This is the statue of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, the founding president of the Republic of Kenya. Sitting majestic at the KICC, well honored, well remembered. Is that the case for Dedan Kimathi? Let's find out. And this right here, this is the statue of Dedan Kimathi, Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi. This is the man who's responsible for Kenya's freedom, and not just Jomo Kenyatta who became the founding president. So this right here is where the remains of Jomo Kenyatta are. See the flags? That's a placement. That's a placement. So though Dedan Kimathi was buried in an unmarked grave, never to be found, many years later, the founding president passed on and was given all the honors, all the colors. Dedan, a true hero of this nation, was never celebrated, was never given a befitting send-off. To date, we have no idea where the brother is. So that is a challenge with Africa. So here we go. So we are walking down Kimathi Street. And Dedan Kimathi was a hero of no mean repute, man. I can tell you that. This is the man who was born in 1920 and probably dropped out of school from what I remember in history. Very young. By the time Dedan Kimathi passed on, and it's passed on in quotes, he was just about 37 years old, quite young. His wife, who sadly we lost very recently, was called Mama Mokami. So Mama Mokami Kimathi. And the one thing that that lady wanted for the longest time was for her husband to be remembered, for her husband to be honored by the Kenyan government. Dedan Kimathi was never honored in the rightful way. He was never placed at the point of history that he deserved as a freedom fighter for this nation. So we get to Kenyatta Avenue. The reason I bring you here is that Mzee Jomo Kenyatta was the founding father of this nation. And for the longest time, one of the things that have not been disputed and certainly has been demonstrated by facts of history is that Mzee Jomo Kenyatta was not a sympathizer of the Mau Mau cause. And Kenyans don't get livid about this. This is out there, man, it's a fact.
Kenyatta held a series of meetings to denounce violence and Mau Mau.
And if you want to know it, upon independence, the Mau Mau were known world over, including Black America, that they fought for the freedom of Africans on this continent, but majorly in Kenya, the central highland regions where a lot of the Kikuyu tribe was dispossessed of land. And in the 50s, at that time, the Mau Mau came up very strongly because the colonial rule had become so brutal at the time that it was becoming untenable. The Mau Mau became very strong, fighting in the Aberdare Mountains.
In Nairobi, capital of Kenya,
engaging in a guerrilla warfare to just get these guys out of the country. And it reminds me so much of Harriet Tubman. the similarity between these two individuals. Tubman was a black sister to rescue black brothers and sisters at a time when segregation was still at full throttle. This was in the mid-19th century. Dedan Kimathi was waging his war in the mid-20th century, in the 1950s. This is when he waged this war. So we are on Kenyatta Avenue. If you have watched my content before, this is a street named after the founding president of this republic, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. And I want to show you something very, very important. Very important. This right here. Look at that. So this was erected in the memory of the fallen soldiers, Africans who fought alongside the Brits, apparently fighting for their king, apparently. So you can see this was from 1914. It's a bit erased there, but this is 1914 to 1918, right here, 1918. They also fought in the second one, the Second World War, 1939 to 1945. So this is to our glorious dead, all right? So let's go across the street. You will notice something else right there. Right there. Let's take a walk. So that's another electric bus. So anyway, it's a beautiful weekend morning here. I love that the skies are so clear, so blue, man. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So here we go. So look at this. Look at this right here. This is in memory of our fallen soldiers. Okay? If you look at that, let's go right across. This is in the memory of the native African troops who fought to the carriers, who are the feet and hands of the army, and to all the other men who served and died for their king and country, died for their king, man, for their colonizer. This is terrible. We should get rid of this, man. We should change this. Died for their king and country in Eastern Africa in the Great War of 1914 to 1918. If you fight for your country, even if you die, your sons will remember your name. So this was not our war. We certainly were not the instigators, you know. So that was from 1914 to 1918, the First World War. Then again, 1939 to 1945. And it is important to note that this period was very crucial for black families across the world, black populations. That what happened is that it ushered in a period of enlightenment, big time. While Americans, black Americans, were going through a period of segregation, that was 100 years since emancipation, which did not end until it was triggered by so many activities, including one of them, which was Rosa Parks refusing to get up from that seat. She was tired, she was weary, she was a human being, for crying out loud. She had the right, so she sat there looking elegant and strong. And of course that also triggered the whole movement that involved Martin Luther King Jr. The young pastor was rising at that time, and it put him right at the center of it.
That all men are created equal.
That triggered a period of awakening, that the populations that went to fight in these wars, the GIs, for example, went to Germany, went to Britain, they fought to save the British Empire. But the British Empire eventually was vanquished, and of course they lost their pole position as the superpower of the world. America soon gained that position. So because of the segregation period that had happened in America for close to 100 years, these wars triggered that awakening. African populations became more aware of their rights. In many areas, the blacks, for example, from the US, realized that they could actually mingle with other populations. And in fact, interestingly enough, there are so many brown children who were born in that era, the GI children, some of whom were never able to connect back with their families, with their fathers, born in that era, because these brothers found freedom. They discovered their freedom, they were human beings, and there was a major conflict that they even had to fight within their own camps to defend their positions against their seniors who are trying to enforce segregation laws all the way from the US to a foreign soil. I mean, how ridiculous is that? The crucial thing is that those of chocolate complexion like you and me have had to fight harder, defend their position. And the stain in the human race is that others enslaved others. And unfortunately, even blacks, Africans on the continent, especially the kingdoms, the kings, engaged in this activity, this tragic era, this disaster that destroyed very, very many families and the culture and social fabric of African populations on the continent. Chinua Achebe, rest in peace, a famous Nigerian writer, authored the book called Things Fall Apart. And in that book, Chinua Achebe talks about the things that hold us together. Chinua Achebe talks about the things that hold us together, the glue that holds us together. That glue being our culture, our customs, our traditions that we are deeply rooted in. So in reference, what he's talking about is the arrival of the Europeans on the continent and how that arrival destroyed that social fabric that held communities together, that held families together. And therefore, because the center could no longer hold, we fell apart. And they found a way to get into our lives. The colonial legacy continues to date. So those are the similarities. The Black History Month has just folded. But Black history to this extent stays with us. That commonality between African populations and the brothers and sisters across the world stay with us. So even those who may not think they're African, yes, you may not be African, but the fact that you share something in common has got to count for something. It has got to count for something. I cannot deny my heritage. I cannot deny my heritage. That's unfortunate, So we are rich in our customs. We are deeply rooted in our traditions. We are great in sports. We are growing in business, and that is something that we really need to work on. And we are definitely talented. And if you're talking of talent, look at these guys, man. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Man, I love that. And guess what the music is? That's black rap, man. So American culture right here. We are family, man. If you can't get it, I don't know, man.
Vijana wamekuja kumaliza makaria. Who the willis out here. Niongeze volume ndio uweze kusikia. Vijana wamekuja kumaliza makaria. Itabidi uanze kukimbia.
Hello? Man, that's rocking. His brothers, I'll have to get you the video, man. I'll have to get you the video.
He has the song too.
Yes, I have to.
I need your contact, man. I need that.
What? Right now. So listen, man. This is Kenyatta Avenue. So Jomo Kenyatta was the founding president. These brothers are rocking on that street, man. These brothers are rocking right here.
We are the hip hop artists of Kenya. The newest, the dopest artist ever.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go,
The
man.
name is
The new wave.
Sons of Who? Sons of Who? Sons of Who?
Sons of who?
I go by the name MUSV. Euphoria.
Euphoria.
Alien Corner. I go by Instinct, you already know.
And we represent 33 and 39.
5-4. Usione ni sisi Buddha.
Hey, wazee noma, nimeenjoy sana, nimeenjoy, man. So welcome to Nairobi, man. I was just telling the story about our connections. Then I bumped into these brothers here, man. So this is great. This is great, you know. They're jamming like crazy. So there's a way that you know your people, you know your music, and we all know where rap culture came from. It's protest. It's about what matters to a community. So that's what's up. So that awakening has continued and families have risen. So that's how important Dedan Kimathi was to Kenyans. And remember Dedan Kimathi, man, this guy was taken out so young, at only 37 years old. You know? At only 37 years old. Dedan Kimathi was captured, and unfortunately by Home Guards who were loyalists to the British cause. Maybe we may be judging them too harshly. We don't know what obtained at that time. But as far as the Mau Mau were concerned, they viewed those who engaged closely with the British as collaborators, as Home Guards, and of course the gentlemen who caught him were police force, African police, Kenyan police, who worked in Nyeri. That's where the brother came from. So his value to emancipation, freeing this country, cannot be underestimated. Dedan Kimathi, much like other heroes, black heroes in the West, Harriet Tubman and her railroad network, her push to free black brothers and sisters in America against segregation in the South was massive. Dedan Kimathi, leading the Mau Mau, where he was named the Field Marshal, was pushing for the freedom of Kenyans against brutal British force. Colonization that took away their land, and majorly it was land, and to date that has never been resolved. President Jomo Kenyatta, who took over power, we saw him in Nakuru talking to the settlers.
Some of you heard Kenyatta, you say, oh, that's a horrible man, I wouldn't like to see him.
That their life, what they had built, was going to be shut down, was going to be destroyed. But he seemed to calm them down.
Let me set you to rest that Kenyatta has no intention whatsoever to look backward.
He chose to work with them. The challenge is that he did not honor the Mau Mau from whom he benefited to become the Prime Minister, then the President of this Republic. He did not honor them. Dedan Kimathi was only honored by President Mwai Kibaki, who became president in the year 2002. That's decades after independence. Those are the realities. Now right here, I'm outside a building called Chester House. This is on Koinange Street, Nairobi. This building, Kenyans will remember, if they were old enough. If they're not, maybe they'll learn something now. That right here at Chester House, the agitation for multi-party politics happened right here. This is where the Jaramogi Oginga Odingas of this world, the Rubias of this world, Martin Shikuku, Kenneth Njindo Matiba would agitate for plural politics. The media center was here. Associated Press, Voice of America, you name it, they were all here. That change happened. And so black populations, Africans, the fight for liberation has continued. to free themselves from that colonial power back in the day. But even more importantly, now, Africans are fighting to emancipate themselves from bad leadership and corruption on the continent of Africa. If you watch the news not as recently, but last year, around June, July, Kenya went through a difficult time where young men and women were cut down along the street, right here, Parliament Road.
Protesters have been clashing with police. The protesters are angry over proposed tax increases and the rising cost of living under President William Ruto.
Because they were pushing for change, they did not want a bill lumped on them, which by all means had the signs of IMF written all over it. They had cut a deal with IMF for loans. In that period of time, we even saw American legislators visit our parliament. That is a challenge that we face today in Africa. And that era, that mistake was made at independence by African leaders who took over from the colonial powers. Founding families have managed to retain their position as the super wealthy of Africa. Do an audit of all the first families in Africa, a vast majority super rich. Kenyan case, no exception. And I share these stories because they interact very well with the reality of Africa today. And in Kenya, we refer to them as the old money. So there's always a joke that you can't fight old money because they were the front runners. They acquired so much already, and that money seems to grow exponentially. So whatever you do, you can't catch up. Kenya's current leadership came into office with major promises that he would vanquish the dynasties. His thing was a class war, and he pushed the whole idea that the dynasties, for example, in Kenya, like the founding fathers family, the Kenyatas, and then the deputy president at the time, Mzee Odinga, that those families were responsible for what has happened in Kenya. And so he sold that to Kenyans, telling them that, we've got to manage our own affairs. These guys can't keep loading on us. You can't make us do only as you want. So he became president on that account, running famously on this song, Hatupangwingwi. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, we are witnessing a third dynasty in this country. We are witnessing a third dynasty in Kenya. That is a sad reality we are facing today, man. The fight is on, man. The fight is on. So this is to create awareness. One of the challenges that we faced in that time is that Kenya continues to experience a land problem. So if you're investing in parcels of land, you have got to do your due diligence. Because, man, that is one murky area in this country. Many people have been victims. Many. So be aware of it. Africans are dispossessed of their land. When the Brits left, the rising elite of Africa never returned that land to their rightful owners. They became the very first ones that took up a huge chunk of those parcels of land, especially in Rift Valley province and central Kenya and coastal Kenya. Those problems dog this nation to date. So be aware, learn about Africa, learn about these individual countries, learn about their histories, because this is crucial to make you invest wisely. It is crucial. This is now the junction of Koinange Street and University Way. This right here is the University of Nairobi. The University of Nairobi. Right there. So that's University Way. So be aware, man. Be aware, information is power. I hope I have shared something that is of value to you. And if it is, subscribe, like, and share. Somebody else may just benefit from this kind of knowledge and understanding of the country called Kenya and just how we relate. The story of Dedan Kimathi has given us this freedom to enjoy this country, to celebrate our own heritage. Harriet Tubman in America made it possible for hundreds to escape captivity and enjoy their freedom as human beings.
Let my people go.
Enjoy their freedom as human beings. So, that being said, as Dedan Kimathi said, it is better to die on our feet than kneeling. Dedan Kimathi was hanged in Kamiti Maximum Prison, buried in an unmarked grave. To date, we don't know where that grave is. His wife, Mama Mokami, died very recently. Her one wish was to find the grave of her husband and to give the man an honor, a decent send-off, a befitting send-off as a hero of this nation. That wish, sadly, was never granted. She never lived to see it. Nonetheless, she was also a freedom fighter, a Mau Mau fighter, who was also jailed by the Brits for her work for this nation. So we celebrate Mama Mokami. We celebrate Dedan Kimathi, men. And we certainly celebrate Harriet Tubman in America. These many years later, the linkages are right there. We cannot deny them. Because what she fought for makes it possible for generations of Africans to also enjoy their travel, at least somewhat easily, to places like the US. So salute to these men and women, these gallant black brothers and sisters who paid the ultimate price to give us the freedom that we so enjoy today. I hope this has been of value. Subscribe, if so, like and share. And many thanks from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate the subscribers who have come on. We have grown in a big way. And I am excited just to keep coming out to the streets and bringing you many more stories. So, many thanks, guys. And I am definitely out. I'm out. You know how to dance? Yes. You know how to dance? I'm a border. I know how to dance. So we can go my you dance. So my brother here is dancing, man. Kila mtu abarikiwe. Everywhere. Uliingia job saa ngapi? Nimekesha. Hadi kwa salama. Kila mtu abarikiwe. Umekesha uko salama? Si umechoka dadi. Inaita kutafuta bwana. Kila mtu abarikiwe. So what he's saying is a border. Border means it's a bike taxi. Yeah. So I think this is his bike. Yeah. So border is a bike taxi. You find it in Nairobi, across the country, but mostly in the East African countries. You will find the border riders. We'll be blessed. How much do you charge within Nairobi city? Yes, within Nairobi, just within city center. City center? Yes. 200 shillings. 200 shillings. Just $2. Per trip. $2 per trip. $2 per trip. And you live forever. And you live forever. Yes. Asante, thank you for your work, man. Karibu, man. All right, man. Asante. Asante. Yeah, so that was just an outtake from that brother there. But we call it a day, and I'm out. Peace and love. Aja buda. Uti.